Hello and welcome to the second episode of my quest project, the Olympian Adjacent Goddesses. Now, what I mean by Olympian Adjacent is that they live on Olympus, they are married to someone related to Olympus, or they work for the Pantheon. Specifically, I'm talking about Hestia, Persephone, and Hebe. We're going to start with Hestia. Now, Hestia is the goddess of the hearth, home, and hospitality. She's the eldest daughter of Cronus and Rhea, which means she was also swallowed by Cronus as a baby. She's a virgin goddess. She's kind of the virgin goddess. Her, Athena, and Artemis form that triad, and she's the Roman Vesta. Now, here's the thing. Hestia does not appear in mythology a lot. By a lot, I mean at all. She was one of the original, how many was it? 6 goddesses born from Cronus and Rhea, the Olympians. But it is said she relinquished her seat on the council to Dionysus. Relinquished or was forced out, or two very different perspectives on it. And after that, she kind of took a backseat from mythology. But before that, she went to Zeus and she was like, hey dude, hey broski, I'm giving up this really, really big thing. I know it's going to be big in a few years. And I kind of want something in return. And he's like, okay, how about this? You will be honored before everyone else, even me, at in daily life. So essentially, the first libations of wine would be offered to Hestia. The first servings of food would be offered to Hestia at at anything really. And then the hearth was she was the goddess of it. It was the central place in the home, in any ancient Greek home. So she was just constantly worshipped. Much of household life in ancient Greece revolved around the hearth, so it revolved around Hestia. She did have it said the reason that she went and did that, or when became a virgin goddess, is because Poseidon and Apollo were really into her, and she's like, I don't really like that. Anyway, next is Persephone. She's the goddess of agriculture and vegetation. She is the most notably wife of Hades. She is also known as Kore, which I will talk a little bit about in a minute. To the Romans, she was Proserpina. She is the queen of the underworld, and she is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Now, general mythology, the reason that there's more words on the screen than old general mythologies is because I could not find images I liked for these things. Anyway, that horse, she gave birth to some horse. I believe it was Arion, who is the fastest horse in the world. And if you've read Percy Jackson, he's Hazel's horse. Minth was this nymph who was having an affair with Hades, or was into Hades, or had previously had a thing with Hades. And Persephone didn't really like that, so either her or her mother turned her into a plant. And that's how we get the name of the plant. Now, the rhapsodic theogony, it is in all of Greek mythology, there's many versions of each story, but they tend to follow relatively similar guidelines. They're oh yeah, it was this girly, and it was at least a few figures are consistent. No, the rhapsodic theogony says that Rhea and Zeus gave birth to Persephone, and a lot of other things that don't really make sense with any of the rest of Persephone's story. Those two M names in the corner, they were the daughters of Orion, who this town, they had to they either had to ritually sacrifice, or they had to sacrifice this one time, and they were okay, let's sacrifice these two girlies. And then they went down, and Persephone and Hades took pity on them, and they were guys, don't worry, it's chill, you're gonna be fine. Moving on to the more specific parts of her mythology. So Adonis, I talked about him in the last video. He was this baby, and Aphrodite was that baby's hot. I don't know a good other way to say that, honestly. And then somebody made Persephone take care of Adonis, and I think there was a chest involved. And then she was ooh, this baby's also very attractive. I can't believe I'm saying this. And then they were fighting over Adonis, and Zeus was yo. He's gonna spend a third of the year with you, Persephone, a third of the year with you, Aphrodite, and then the last third will be for himself. And Adonis liked to hunt in his alone time, and he actually died hunting dogs, or it was a boar. It was a wild boar. A wild boar killed Adonis. Anyway, Sappho is on the screen there in the corner because she's the one who wrote this whole story about Adonis and Aphrodite and Persephone. Hades and the kidnapping overall. This is by far the most anybody knows about Persephone in any aspect. The statue you see there is called the Rape of Prosperina. It is in a museum in Rome, and it's a very interesting depiction. Something to note about the statue is, if you can see there, this is a Roman statue, so that's Pluto. But Pluto is like gripping Persephone's thigh, and I will see just that part zoomed in on Pinterest, and it will be like they'll like try and play it off as like, oh, love, whatever, whatever. No, the statue is called the Rape of Prosperina. Rape and kidnapping were used kind of like interchangeably at this time. Were used kind of interchangeably at this time. So the rape of Persephone, the kidnapping of Persephone, they mean the same thing in this context, even though they are very different in modern day. To get more into the actual details of the kidnapping, essentially, how this is like details collected from various writings, but how the story goes is Persephone was picking flowers in a field, and one version of this is that this was not just any random flowers in any random field. Hades and Gaia grew these flowers specifically so Persephone would pick them. And there's actually like a list of flowers somewhere, but she was picking these flowers, and then Hades rose up out of the ground, kidnapped her. Now, Demeter and her daughter were very close, and she was like, "Where is my child? What did you do?" And she went to Zeus, and she's like, "Make him bring her back." And Zeus was like, "I can't really do anything." And she's like, "Make him bring her back." And he was like, "I can't really do anything." And she was like, "Cool. I'm just gonna not let anything grow. The humans are gonna starve. Nobody's gonna be happy. You're not gonna get any offerings." And she did that. Nobody was happy about that. And while this was happening, she and Hecate were searching the world for Persephone with Hecate's torches. So that's why sometimes you'll see Demeter depicted with Hecate's torches. And then Zeus was like, "Yo, none of us are getting offerings. We're kind of like sick of it. Can you just like give her back?" And Hades was like, "Okay, I think I'll do that." But before that, he went to Persephone. He's like, "Hey, sweetie, will you like eat this pomegranate?" And it was either that she like knew what was gonna happen and she ate it, he made her eat it, or she was like she didn't know what was gonna happen and she ate it. But then when Hermes came to collect her, everyone like Demeter and Zeus were like, "Oh crap. Oh crap. She is bound to the underworld now." And essentially what eating that pomegranate like did to Persephone was she was now bound to the underworld. And I forget if it's like she had to like be there all the time, like that prevented her from ever returning, or if it was because she ate this many seeds, she had to stay in the underworld for a certain portion of the year. That's something I'm iffy on. But it was like, okay, well, Zeus was like, haha, I get to have her for like this many months. And they were like, okay. So then that whole arrangement happened, and then that's how we have winter, because Demeter doesn't let anything grow while her daughter is away. The Eleusinian mysteries were this really big, very secretive festival that we don't know a lot about, and it was worshiping Persephone and Demeter. I believe it was something to do with Persephone. It was either her leaving or returning, but it was a really big deal. We don't know a lot about it though, because worship is a little like we can get some stuff, but it's kind of tricky because it's like just day-to-day life, sort of. Now, general worship is a very interesting topic with Persephone because before meeting Hades, she was not Persephone, she was Kore. And these are pretty much two distinct deities. Persephone is like, oh my goodness, it means something to do with death, and Kore means like virgin maiden. So, very different things. And I have this quote from author Gunther Zunz that is one of my favorites I found while researching. "No farmer prayed for corn to Persephone, no mourner thought of the dead as being with Kore." It's just like this thing of Kore is not somebody who protects the dead while Persephone is. And Persephone is not somebody who makes life grow. She is the queen of the underworld. They are two very different aspects of this one figure, which tends to be how epithets work, which is just another name you can refer to a deity or a figure as, like Pallas Athena. It's just, epithets are very interesting and create a lot of complex themes and stories within mythology. Next is Persephone and Odysseus. Now, in Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus encounters the dread Persephone in Tartarus when he visits his dead mother. He just like encounters her, and he like sacrifices something to her because that's how pleasing the gods works. That was like a very brief thing. With Orpheus, though, I originally recorded this video, and by the time I was here, it was about 3 minutes shorter. But I forgot to include this guy, and she has a big role in his story, because the story of Orpheus and Eurydice is that this guy and this girlie were in love. He's also the son of a muse. That's a different thing, though. This guy and this girlie were in love, and the girlie dies, and then he goes to the underworld to find her, and he's like, I want to bring her back. And Persephone takes pity on him, and she's like, oh my goodness, you totally can. Like, you can. Like, but it's going to be a little complicated. Then Hades is like, yeah, you can't look at her. You have to walk all the way back to the overworld, and you cannot turn around to make sure she's there. And then he turns around, and they both die, or just she dies. Anyways, moving on to Hebe. Hebe is the goddess and personification of eternal youth. She's the daughter of Zeus and Hera. She's the cupbearer to the gods, which is really how she's connected to Olympus. She's the wife of Heracles. To the Romans, she is Juventus. She's the patron of brides, and she is who keeps the gods young. Now, there's a very interesting thing with Hebe in art. Now, these are all, in a sense, Hebe, but none of them are Hebe. In fact, oh my goodness, the one in like the middle left, that's Marie Antoinette. But these are all women painted en Hebe, which was a French term, which basically these women would dress up as Hebe, have some sort of props with them, and they would be painted as the goddess. This was a thing whenever Marie Antoinette was alive in France, this was like a big thing. Aristocratic and noble women would be painted like this a lot. And it's just something I found really interesting in art, because just depictions of the gods throughout the years, as well as like this like revival period of painting the gods, is a very interesting thing. Now, Ganymede is not related to Persephone in the way one might think. The story goes that Persephone was serving the gods, and she either tripped or, oh my goodness, she either tripped or they just like fired her as cupbearer. Oh, she either tripped, or it was when she got married to Heracles. Now, Ganymede was this femboy that Zeus was in love with. And he was like, hey, I know the perfect guy to replace her. And he brought this kid up. He was just like some mortal. And Hera was not happy about this. And I believe there was some repercussions of that. But as I mentioned before, Hebe is married to Heracles, which is why she's the patron of brides. They have 2 children together to my memory. I cannot recall their names, however. But she married him. That's kind of it. That might be why she lost her job as cupbearer. Now, Hebe in worship is, if you look at a statue of Zeus, this is not a statue of Zeus, but if you look at a statue of Zeus and there's an eagle on his arm, that represents Hebe. And so Hebe will be in this, and as in many of the Hebe paintings, she's painted with an eagle and her cup. And this is more like artsy worship than just worship. But yeah, she was like depicted as an eagle and such. Anyway, that is the Olympian Adjacent Goddesses. Thank you so much.